Welcome everybody to the City Council meeting. It's nice to see so many people here. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices, and if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we come before you tonight in a spirit of gratitude. We thank you for your blessings, but we also recognize that sometimes what at first seems like adversity often turns out to be an opportunity for growth. We thank you for these times too. Help us to remember that our biggest gift as a council is our ability to harmonize several viewpoints into a unified vision. We pray that this spirit of open communication, honesty, and mutual respect lives into the future as we work together to build a better city for present and future generations. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And our Fernandez fun fact tonight will be presented by Councilmember Abel, I believe is what it says here. You did it.
Me.
Oh my goodness, I caught an error in the notes. Councilmember Schistler.
Thank you. Well, my Temple Terrace historical fun fact for tonight is, are we wishing for the good old days? The fun fact tonight is the highly exciting topic of taxes and millage rates. As you know, our current millage rate is 6.455 mils, and that this calculation is the local property taxes for every $1,000 of property value. So if your property value is $200,000, then your local, just Temple Terrace, property taxes would be about $1,291. But let's look back into the history of Temple Terrace. What were some of the historical millage rates? 2022, it was 6.555. But the base tax rate was $2,662,000,000. Okay? 2017, the tax rate was 7.205 with the taxable value of $1,497,000,000. In 2010, the rates were 5.2829. They're jumping all over the place. But the taxable rate was $1,247,000,000. Let's go back to the year 2000. The millage rate was 4.91, but the taxable rate was only $835 million. So we had some significant growth in our tax base for the city. In the year 1990 was 4.41, but the taxable rate was $633 million. And in 1980, the millage rate was 7.10 with a taxable base of $185 million. Was not able to find some taxable values prior to 1980, but in 1960 our tax rate was 16 mils. In 1948 it was 20 mils, and this is all by resolution, and in 1938 it was 25 mils. Granted, the values then were much, much less. In 1945, I think we had like 400 residents, 400 homes within the city. So, but the millage rates were much higher. So I don't know that we want to go back to the good old days per se. But I will say in 1945, we had an assessment of 2 cents per linear frontal property that was on a paved road only that was assessed to pay for the weed removal and minor street repairs. So when we look at our millage rates, they've been all over the place throughout the history of Temple Terrace, but it's a little easier now. That's my fun fact for the day.
Interesting. I don't know if taxes are fun, but it's interesting.
Well, it's a little sick way.
Mr. Ritter remembers every one of those years. So, very good. Thank you so much, Councilmember. So, first item up is a presentation from John Harbison, who's the general manager of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club. Good evening, Mr. Harbison.
Good evening, Mayor. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Was asked to come and just kind of give an update on the golf course and the clubs and the club in general, the country club. As you remember, I started here, I think I started the same day you did, Carlos, 1st of October. Obviously, the town and the golf club and the community was recovering from the hurricane. So since then, it's been a pretty active 10 and a half, 11 months, and we feel like we're really moving in the right direction on our services, and our membership is, while some of our overall numbers are flat, we're seeing some demographics change in our membership numbers, such as like our young executive member now is the largest group of members in the club. So that's actually really good. Most of those people are 25 years old to 31 years old. So we see a major growth that way. We've had a lot of, just since I've been there, the number of new people that have moved into Temple Terrace have joined the club is pretty impressive. We're still working on, as everybody knows, we went through a major transition with some accounting upgrades. We currently have an outside accounting firm that we now do our books and everything for us. It's taken them a long time to get our balance sheets and things straightened out, but they were pretty close to getting it all rectified now. We had a great meeting with the committee, the SAC committee the other day, and it was wonderful. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. What's on the horizon for the club? Well, we're looking forward to a great winter this year, get back into season. We've got some things to utilize the space a little bit better from a standpoint of unused tee times and things like that to continue to drive the membership value proposition for the members, but to also utilize the club to where it becomes more financially stable and can stand on its own. We want to be current with everybody. We probably retired close to ballpark, probably well over $250,000 worth of debt since my coming on the job. Some of those things were some past dues and things that just got handed over and lost in transition from one cycle to the next of administrations. And I'm really happy that right now we're fairly current. We're not quite current with the city as I'd like to be, but we're getting closer to that. And the city has been very helpful, and I want to thank the city for that and understanding. Just like any other small business, and especially one that depends on weather a lot and economic trends as well, that we go through some times like August and September. They're not really the most profitable times or the most futile times for us, but nevertheless, we get back in the wintertime and we do some great things. Some of the events we've had at the club in conjunction with the city have been very well received. 4th of July, all the festivals and things we do. We can't wait to get involved with all those things for this year as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Harbison. You can stop the clock, Madam Clerk. I do have a question, and I'll open it up to the council members. So do you guys have a current and up-to-date strategic plan about where you're going over the next couple of years?
Our board does have it's. We haven't published it yet. We just had a new board, as you all know. Our fiscal year actually starts April 1st and ends in March, and so we just had a brand new board. My new president is Mr. James Schaefer, and we had Todd Snap also took a position on the board. And Mr. Boss stepped away from the board, as well as Mr. Dempsey's tenure actually ran out. So we are working with our committees. One of the things I've been very happy about, because at my suggestion, we brought a lot of the committee structure back. This club didn't really have a very active committee structure when I found it here in last October. When I interviewed here, and I was offered the job in 2009, a lot of people know, they had a lot of committees, a lot of input. It was pretty cool. I didn't exactly come over here then, obviously, but I stayed pretty close to a lot of people, and we brought those committees back. So our financial committee is probably as good as anyone I've ever worked with as far as getting strategic, as far as where we want to go and what we're trying to do. So we should have something published in the near future that we could present you with. It's basically, being a really good steward of the community and trying to grow the membership and obviously being financial stable. Everything is about the financials to us. We're trying to make sure the club is efficient, and the nicer we can make the golf course, then the better it is for everybody involved around here. So
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with that. I'm not speaking for the council here. I'm just speaking for myself. But strategic plan means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But what I'm looking for, and I can't tell you what to do, it's your club, but this is kind of what I'm asking if you have, is if your plan has, okay, these are our financial targets, this is what our budget needs to be in order to thrive. And in order to do that, we have to increase concessions by 8%, and we have to get membership up 12%, and we have to have banquet revenue up 20%, whatever those targets are. And these are the steps that we're going to do to accomplish that. Because I know at certain periods, and I'm not throwing darts at anybody, but at certain periods in time, the club has had a lot of hope, but not a lot of strategy. So
Well,
how are you going to get this additional banquet revenue? Well, we're just hoping it comes.
I would agree with that. I try to stay when I do these. I've been doing this a long time. My 40th year in the industry. My family, as you know, owned golf businesses here in the state of Florida for almost 35 years. So I'm an under promise, over deliver type person. And so when in this, I don't like to call it like a turnaround. I just think that we're just evolving. And so our industry's changed so much. What people want out of a golf course, or what they want out of a country club, or a semi-private country club or a private country club, those things are changing. If anything, they're almost changing dynamically weekly. And so our financial committee, we brought a house committee back that wasn't in existence. We've got more participation in our golf committee than they ever have. So strategically, to get what you're asking for, that's exactly what we're trying to do, because everything depends around the financials. So we've got it broken down right to, like, it takes for our highest level member, which is a senior voting member, and our social member, which is the lowest person, and we have 244 of those social members, but it takes 4 of those to make one senior voting member. Unfortunately, in our business, we have people move away, and we seem to be losing some members because, unfortunately, of health and age, more than services that we're providing. Had a member in my office today that's just coming by, is moving to Birmingham. I mean, those are things that there's things that are hard to budget for. So that's why those younger members coming in and seeing us as a value is really great. But everything that in our financial committee, every department has been budgeted, and we're staying within that budget right now. We're working really hard to get caught up on that. Obviously, we started pretty far behind in October, so we're really making some headway on that. The thing I'm most happy about is that our payables and things are more in line. Are we net 30 with everybody? No. But are we net 60 or 45 with almost everybody? Yeah, we're pretty close to it. So we're trying to get caught up. There's things like that I wasn't even aware of until later this summer. Like there were some utility bills we weren't receiving, things like that I had to get caught up on. There's back taxes that I wasn't totally, and the city loan deal. So that has taken me a long time to just learn all that, to be honest with you. And I think we've got a pretty good understanding of it now, and our committees are really active in that.
Thank you, Mr. Harbison. Councilmember Fernandez.
Okay, so just for disclosure, our family is social members for a long time.
Thank you.
No, my kids wouldn't have eaten if it hadn't been for the club, apparently. So my question for you is really about marketing, and how are you advertising to new families coming in, and maybe some families that have been here for a little while but haven't been club members? What's the plan?
Well, we currently have had a plan, and we're trying to enhance that plan through our membership committee, but we're trying to get a little bit more activity on our membership committee. And again, when we change board members and we go through an election cycle, that kind of slows things down. It takes a few minutes to back up. I think you all would understand that and what you all do when you have elections and things, to get new people on, to get some new ideas maybe. But what we've been able to do is we have the realtors. Most of our realtors that support Temple Terrace are aware that we have, if you move into the club and own a home in Temple Terrace, you can join complimentary for 3 months. So that's helped us a lot. Do we retain every one of those people? Absolutely not. But we do keep a majority of those people because they feel welcome, and by 3 months is enough time for us to get them up there and get them acclimated to the club and using the facilities. And some of them don't stay. It's not like we're doing anything wrong. It's just that they don't have the time for a country club. Kids are in school, sports, and they're at that, younger age trends that they just, can't devote all that time up there to the club. At the end of the day, we have a pool, a great cabana bar, and a golf course, and that's what we have, and a great lounge and food. So our meetings and banquets things seem to be doing well. We've been a little bit from the the slower side on getting that wedding business and some of those major events back. We've had some that have gone over real well. We just haven't been able to get that from a marketing standpoint there because it's very expensive to market. What I've done is I've been able to get some ad placement down in South Tampa with the Devil Rays, the Bucks, and the Lightning that didn't cost the club anything. Wound up, doing a little bartering here and there, and that's going over pretty well. We're actually starting to see a little ground from that. The realtors have helped a lot. We are hopefully with the next thing that we're going to try to do with the golf club itself is get that golf club marketed through some means that we have ability to do that won't cost the club anything, but actually get it out there on the internet with online bookings and things like that and have better websites. So that's the next thing that we're actually planning to do if the board approves it.
Okay, so then another question for you about golfing in particular. I don't know how popular is golfing with younger generations, and if they're not filling in for the people that are retiring, are there other ways to use the course that don't interfere with the traditional golf use?
Well, that's a great question. 25 miles from the front door of that country club, and since January 1st, there was 202,000 rounds of golf booked online. Verified all that with the National Golf Foundation and Golf Now, which runs about 98% of the online tee time bookings. About $11 million in revenues, and Temple Terrace didn't get any of it because we don't have any online booking capability. So we are kind of a dinosaur there. So that's fixing to change, I hope. And one way or the other, we're going to change it and upgrade all our POS systems and things at little or no cost to the club, if the board approves it. I put those ideas in front of them. Is it going to open the club up wide open and just be a free-for-all? No. We don't have any desire to do that. We have a desire to pick up quality, targeted times when the club's not being used by its members. One thing about it, I've been there 11 months pretty much. I know when my members play, and I know when they don't. And our members are really great people, but they're really they got some serious habits. When they play, and when they don't, they don't. So it's kind of easy for us to, as a management group, to sit there and look at, well, we're busy here, we're not busy here. So let's open this up and see if we can drive some more revenue and play in there. And I think we're going to be able to do that pretty much. It's gone over pretty well. We're going to have final presentations right now to do that. But if you think about $11 million, 25 miles from the club, and I can go 5 miles from our club. I can go down the street. Nobody. I guarantee you. I bet you anything in the world, I can find people that don't know who we are or where we are, and it's very concerning. So, but then again, advertising is very expensive. Marketing is very expensive. So I'm trying to find ways to do that that don't impact our budget at all, and actually give us a bang for our buck when we do spend some money.
Okay, that's it.
Council members? Thank you, Mr. Harbison. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
being here. Thank you. Good to see you.
Mr. Schaefer's right here.
Mr. Schaefer, anything to add?
Just maybe to elaborate on his answer to your question, we have several young executive membership options. So we do have a lot of 21 to 30, 31 to 40 membership options, and we do have a lot of those members. But I will say we've been in, since the recession in 08, 09, and we went through a lot. We went through integrity. And I will say we owe a debt of gratitude to Donnie Whittemore and John Nertney for bringing us out of that. And we are carrying forth with that. We're looking at our membership options, but we always like to offer the young people an affordable option in hopes of that they will become senior members. And, we're evaluating that. And John's done a phenomenal job. And, we look forward to a good relationship, and we're doing our best. There's always, like he said, when we change leadership and looking at records, we're, we maybe, whoever dropped the ball with utilities and things, but we're making that up. I've spoken with Mr. Schisler a couple weeks ago, and I think we're being very active with communication. So, because this is always going to happen with the club. We're going to change. I'm not going to be president next year, hopefully. Maybe I will. But, we're always going to change the board, but we need to have better communication with the city. And I think we're adapting to that and are receptive to that. And, so these kind of things, whether we change, in next year or 2 years, there's a strong communication and there's nothing going to be dropped, and, and things will move fluidly, like they always have in the past. But, like I said, we've had some, due to the climate, economic climate, going back even 15 years and what we did. And, we used to have 37 classifications. I mean, I don't even know how we kept track of that. I wasn't on the board then. I was on the board right before the recession hit. But I think we've got a better grasp of that. And, and moving forward, there will be a seamless transition, if you will. So, there won't be any drop balls or anything like that. So, but like I said, we're going to meet every quarter and go through things, provide financials, and any questions, any of you may have, we'll be happy to answer. And, we're an open book. So, like I said, we coexist. And, a lot of the Terrace citizens aren't country club members, but they use the course. And I don't mean playing golf. Maybe they do, but I mean walking their dogs, jogging, things, we've always been receptive to that and will continue to be. It's kind of a weird, I can't find a thing like that in any other city. It's kind of, hey, we're a private country club, but we're on city land we lease, but other member, we coexist, and I think it's a good thing, and we hope it continues. So, but the lines of communication will be very open. So,
Thank you, Mr.
all
Shaker.
right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harbison. Appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Next item is a presentation by Corrine Beam, who's going to discuss the Temple Terrace Pedestrian Master Plan for the Community Redevelopment Area. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Corinne Beam with Kimley Horn here to provide an update on the pedestrian master plan for the southeast quadrant of the Temple Terrace redevelopment area. So we'll jump right in. The outline of the presentation follows along with the outline of the draft master plan document itself, and we'll cover the key aspects of each of those sections in the presentation this evening. So just to recap on project goals and objectives, the goals of the pedestrian master plan are to improve pedestrian and bicyclist flow and connectivity throughout the site and improve walkability from the north end through all the way to the south end. And the second piece of those goals and objectives are to implement park improvements and amenities around the Springdale Outfall Pond area. Just for reference, the map on the right-hand screen is our study area or the general location of the southeast quadrant. And for the purposes of the plan, we've divided that into 3 sections of focus. Prior to developing the recommendations for the master plan, we took a look at existing conditions to understand opportunities and constraints that are out there in the site today. There's a slide for each of the 3 sub-areas, but generally the opportunities include enhancing pedestrian crossings for safe access to and from the site, as well as walkability and connectivity within the site itself. Also opportunities to reconfigure some space for example in the north sub-area, flex space for markets or food truck rallies, and then throughout all 3 sub-areas, there's an opportunity for placemaking, so consistent design elements, wayfinding signage to carry a cohesive sense of place throughout the southeast quadrant. Some constraints, particularly in the north sub-area, include limited space for additional open space amenities, and also some of the properties aren't city-owned, so we had to be aware of that as we were developing our recommendations. Similar opportunities and constraints exist in the the central sub-area. again, there's opportunities to enhance existing sidewalks and pedestrian areas, particularly directly in front of the Winn-Dixie. There's also opportunity to add outdoor dining and seating areas, and again, continue that consistent design, feel, wayfinding, branding elements throughout. Again, a constraint here is limiting the impact to parking with our improvements, knowing that that is a very utilized portion of the site. And then again, most of that property is not city-owned in the central sub-area. Moving to the south sub-area, again, similar opportunities as far as connectivity to enhance existing pedestrian crossings, but also add amenities around the Springdale Outfall Pond area, including a multi-use trail, some passive recreational elements and active recreational elements, such as a fitness area with equipment, and then again, continuing those wayfinding signage elements and consistent design features. Before we dive into some graphics on the actual recommendations themselves, I just wanted to mention that outside of the specific sub-areas, we also developed area-wide recommendations, and the images on the right-hand side of the screen provide some examples of what those can look like. And these really aim to demonstrate what some of those branding and wayfinding and consistent design elements can be, and those can be implemented across all three sub-areas within the southeast quadrant. Diving into the recommendations, so these haven't changed since the last time I presented to the CRA board, but just to provide a recap, the main improvements in the north sub-area include widening the sidewalk on the east side of Bertha Palmer Boulevard, and then using the existing parallel parking for a flex space for either outdoor markets, food truck rallies, things of that nature. And as you'll see, the little red symbols on both of these slides indicate kind of key nodes along the roadway for shade features. So as people are walking north to south, south to north, opportunities to rest and sit in the shade, just because there isn't a lot of existing shade out there today. This rendering here is just provided to show what these improvements can feel on the street level perspective. So again, you'll see the widened sidewalk on the east side or the left-hand side of the screen, and then that flex space implemented on the right-hand side there. Moving to the central sub-area, really the main improvement here is providing a more dedicated pedestrian walk area, again at grade in front of the Winn-Dixie Shopping Plaza, and then adding some features for outdoor seating areas to the south end, as well as some design elements and pocket park features on the north end, and again enhancing that crossing on Chicago Avenue. These next couple of slides again intend to show what those improvements can feel like at the street level. So you'll see the pocket park space on the left-hand side, and then kind of in the background there, closer to the Winn-Dixie, that at-grade paver area. Also within the central sub-area, this rendering is showing a raised intersection at the intersection of Chicago Avenue and Bertha Palmer to provide a graphic of how that space can be utilized for pedestrians and bicyclists traveling from the central into the south portion of the site. And again, this is that same intersection, just looking west on Chicago Avenue to provide an additional perspective on those improvements. Lastly, moving into the south sub-area, the main improvements and recommendations from the master plan for this area include park-like amenities and features around the outfall area. And these include a multi-use trail, a gazebo area or gateway space into that park area, as well as space for dining, a picnic area, and then a fitness equipment area. And again, important to note some enhanced crossings on River Hills Drive and Chicago Avenue to promote access to and from that area of the site. And again, those improvements are carried further south towards Riverside Park. And then these next couple of slides, again, just to show a street level perspective. This is at the north end of the site looking south onto that gazebo feature and that gateway feature of the park area. And then this shifts south of the site looking north, really highlighting that multi-use trail and then the fitness area kind of in the background on the right-hand side there. And then last perspective here is on the east side of the pond looking west, highlighting some design features such as a pedestrian bridge, as well as riprap and retaining wall in spot areas throughout the outfall area. We also prepared planning level budget estimates for these improvements, and the planning budget estimate ranges from $4.3 million to about $4.9 million for these improvements. And as you can see, they're summarized by improvement for each sub area. We also wanted to touch in the master plan the ability to implement some of these improvements in a short-term fashion, and then go back and design and construct and acquire funding for more long-term options. So some of these examples, particularly in the north sub area, include that parallel parking flex space. So temporarily you could close the street and activate the space for pedestrians during a market or a specific event, understand how well it's utilized, what the attendance is like, before you go back and permanently remove some of that parallel parking for a widened sidewalk and dedicated flex space. Same along the central sub-area, there are some opportunities to implement a painted intersection at the intersection of Chicago Avenue and Bertha Palmer, and then go back and construct a more permanent raised intersection feature. We also took a look at potential grant opportunities and funding opportunities for the improvements that we're recommending in the pedestrian master plan. This slide and the next slide provide an overview of the potential funding opportunities that are out there. They do range from the federal, state, local level, and even specific agencies such as AARP that do have funding sources available. The grants themselves fund a variety of the recommendations within the master plan. So some focus on shade, landscaping, while others focus on sidewalk and actual transportation improvements. As you can see in the table, most of the grants, do require some sort of local funding match. The amount of that match varies by grant and also by total project cost. And then some grants do have a maximum funding request. So some fund smaller improvements such as like bike racks or the bike maintenance stands as part of a larger project, where some may be able to fund portions of the multi-use trail, for example. And last, as we wrap up the master plan project, we will finalize the plan based on any feedback we receive from you all this afternoon, or this evening, and then we'll also have a public presentation of the master plan. The format and date of that public presentation is still to be decided, and we're working with staff through that. But that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Beam. So, I don't know if Mr. Pauly or you are better prepared to answer this. So what are the next steps? Because I think, I'm not sure of this, I don't want to put words in council's mouth, but I think what we would like to see is an opportunity for the public to see all of this, including the river, which I know is not really part of this, but including that, our staff could do that at the same time, and Kimley Horn could do. But I don't know if it's really like a town hall or more of a public input. I don't know that we need to get on a table in the front. More like a DOT workshop when they do the community workshops and they're looking at, what would you like to see 56th Street look like? And they have forms for capturing that, and, they get that. So is that the next step?
Within, Corinne and I have actually, and Carlos have actually spoken on this exact topic. Within the scope that Corinne is working under, there is an additional public meeting that, as she mentioned, has been left undetermined. And it was left undetermined for the exact reason you've just described. We do want to put this in front of a larger public audience and receive feedback from maybe a community outreach meeting, not necessarily a town hall, but a community meeting based on this exact project.
Okay. Are you going to bring, I think this would be a good idea, although I can't tell you what to do, but are you going to bring this plan back before the council to say, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to, you just saw it tonight, right? This is what you saw, the public saw it. It's not locked in stone, it's on paper. No, it's not even on paper, it's on slides. But we propose to have a community meeting or a series of meetings or whatever the case may be, and then to get the council's thumbs up on that, and then we have them. Is that what you're planning to do?
I would think so. I think the most productive way we could do it is kind of what you alluded to, having basically stations at a workshop where people could give their feedback on each individual element, I would think, the north, south, central, or however we'd want to get it more granular. And then take that feedback, put it together in some sort of report to the council, and then get your direction as to what you would like to see based on that report, whether you want all the elements, how you'd like to proceed. In the budget discussions we had prior months, we talked about including dollars from that Rollison Ranch sale potentially to offset some of the cost of doing this. So yes, we could definitely program starting to do an element depending on the direction you give us.
Okay. And so you would come back to council and say, hey, we're looking at doing this on this date at Lightfoot or whatever, and.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, council members. Councilmember Fernandez.
So on the constraints for the first two, the north and the central, portions of it are not city-owned. So are we talking about asking the property owner to do this work, or are we talking about all of what we are looking at and proposing in this draft to be actually within city-owned property, or in the case of the sidewalks that DOT may have some, that it might be in their right-of-way, that we have permission to do it?
Correct. So for the north sub-area, all of the improvements are within city right-of-way, except for the sidewalk on 56th Street. In there, we're only proposing to add potentially like landscaping planters to provide some separation from the high-speed roadway and the sidewalk. So in the north sub-area, that's something we avoided, just giving that constraint, is adding improvements on non-city-owned property. In the central sub-area, that's a little bit different. That whole parcel is not city-owned. So that's where, and Greg, feel free to chime in, but that's where our improvements are very limited to just directly in front of the Winn-Dixie to widen the path and not impact parking or business access. But as far as funding those improvements, I'm not sure.
That was not included in Corinne's scope as far as funding sources for private property.
Well, I'm just curious, because if we propose something and we don't have any ownership of the property, then we can't make the property owner do what they don't want to do.
The concern that you're sharing right now is the same concern that we've had from the beginning of this project, and in fact, the privately held portions of the area have posed challenges all along the course of this project. Corinne has actually met with many of those property owners, and including the one that you're mentioning right now. So she and her team have a bit of an understanding of their level of participation. But again, we would not, it's neither my suggestion or Corinne's suggestion to ask the city to use public funds to develop on private property without having some type of a agreement in place that would protect those funds.
Okay, so then, and I know obviously this plan is a draft, but as we move farther into the south sub area, where we're talking about that enhanced crossing over Chicago, I know that is an area of concern. I know that people who park at the post office are already concerned, and they're in cars, that the amount of traffic traveling up and down that street, so I don't know, but I guess I'd want to be in an area where we're discussing this with the public, when they're able to go through and give their feedback, because I'm concerned about us taking steps that the public's not interested in, but two, we don't have the buy-in of the property owners, and, that there's no point in going forward then.
So as to the property owners, we have made attempts to find, as Greg mentioned, Corinne's met with the property owners. The Winn-Dixie property is really the biggest issue here. And not in a negative way, it's just complicated. One of the original plans, actually, I think we may have shown council months ago, had an impact on parking, which was
Right.
much more substantial. So in light of the concerns by the property owner, again, trying to get to a point where we can have some sort of an amicable arrangement to get this done, we changed the plan to make it less ambitious from a pedestrian sense, but still provide a pedestrian corridor, and we wouldn't impact as much parking. So we've done some of those things, and we'll continue to do those if this is what the council wants us to do moving forward. And I'm sure we will invite the property owners to attend whatever forum we have. We'll probably extend a personal invitation to guarantee that their attendance, because we'd like to get that input there in a venue where you'd be there as well to see.
Okay, so, and then this is a money question, and that is, the funding from the TIF, can that be used, given that if there were additional funds available at the end of debt payments and other budget items, can that be used for any improvement that we would want to do in this area, or are there restrictions on that?
As long as we've incorporated, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as we've incorporated this into our CRA development plan, we should be able to include, so if you had dollars in the CRA that you wanted to dedicate towards this effort, we could do that.
Okay.
Councilmember Abel.
Thank you for the presentation, and especially thank you for including the possible grant opportunities. I guess my question is probably for the city manager, though. So seeing all those grant opportunities, my eyes kind of got big with dollar signs, and I was wondering, do we have the staff capacity and maybe even chances of getting a grant like that, or I don't know. Do you think that's possible?
Well, I was very impressed by Kimley Horn's work on this, because when I saw that, my eyes lit up too. It was like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. To your question about whether we have the staff capacity, we don't have a dedicated person that just does grants. What everybody does is a really outstanding job of trying to find grants for their particular service when they can. We would have to basically assign this task to someone. I'm sure Mr. Polly would be involved with that effort, but there'd probably be a team of folks working on this to try and use whatever their expertise is in their networks to have a better chance of getting those grant awards.
Okay, thank you.
Another. So, Councilmember Fernandez, you raised a good point about the private property, which obviously complicates this a lot. And so, as the city manager alluded to, we changed this around a little bit so they don't have to give up parking spaces, because that's a primary concern. What we're hoping to do is to create a plan that is so beneficial to everybody that, we own the south portion, we own the north portion, to work together with you to show you that, this is really could a benefit for you to connect to what we're going to build, so that you're part of it, because it's only going to cause more people to walk in front of your businesses. So that's what we're hoping to get to, is to develop a plan that they go, hey, this is good for me too. You're not taking anything away from me. You're giving something to me. So yeah, I'll put some skin in this game. But at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, we can't make them do this if they don't want to do it. We could wind up with a great idea that's north of them and a great idea on the south of them, and then we got that. It could happen. What we're trying to do, I believe, is to get this idea so we have something to work towards. Right now, we don't have anything to work towards. We do have some money from the sale of Rollerson Ranch that we're holding. We haven't done anything with it. We gave some to police for the police station towards that, but the rest of it is sitting there. It could be used to advance this project, and we could phase it, once we get public input, once we say, yeah, this is what we want to see built, we could phase it. We can say, okay, well, what's really important to us now? It wouldn't take that much to do the river park because it's passive and it's fairly, it wouldn't take much to do that. Let's do that. Let's do the pond area. Let's do the, we could phase it. I don't know if we're going to have a bridge over the pond from day one, right? I mean, that's probably a high dollar ticket. You know what I'm trying to say? Expensive. And so, we're at the point now, I think, of just wanting to get public input, because we've had a lot of brainstorming, but we haven't really given the public a lot of opportunity to say, no, we'd like to see this, or we'd like to see that. But what we're trying to do is just get the vision, and then what are we going to build and how we're going to pay for it? Those are questions that we can chip away at.
I have another question.
Yeah.
This is probably, I don't really know who would answer this. So when we're talking about the old Steak and Shake property, the Curry, I can't think of it as the Curry Bowl. Is there a way to reserve some of that space for parking towards, to keep a portion of that property towards the back to use as parking? Because I'm concerned I know we're talking about pedestrian and bicycle friendly, but yet there will still be people that will drive maybe, for a variety of reasons and they would want parking closer to let's say the area that if we were to rehab that pond, and if we did something even passively with River Hills area, would that be an option? Or even reasonable?
I think there's nothing stopping the council from saying that's the direction you want to go. I mean, we can make that work. I don't know how many parking spaces that would generate. I think that we just have to, we have to keep in mind that if we're going to build public parking on the back of that property, that is going to limit the revenue
Right.
potential for the entire piece of property, because it's not going to generate that much income. But that may be a calculus the council wants to have. Maybe that's what they prefer to do. Right now, we're struggling, as Mr. Pauly mentioned during the CRE portion of the evening, to just find interested parties to develop the entire piece. We have not heard from anybody who says to us, boy, if only this piece was smaller, we'd make this deal work, right? They want it to be bigger.
That's
So-
why I'm asking if it's even reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable question for sure. It's just, it's all in what the council wants to achieve. If you want the highest and best return from a tax base or economic multiplier effect, then you may not want to do that. But if you want to have something that accommodates, which a lot of communities have, these sort of parking facilities sort of off their main drag, if you will. If you want that because it helps the community with the bigger picture for the park on River Hills, that's fine too. But it just depends on what your
I
desires
think
are.
those are the kind of discussions that we should and will have after we have the public outreach and get the input. I think then at that point, the council's going to probably need to have a meeting, maybe where that's the only agenda item, and say, okay, we've heard from the public, what do we want this to be? And is there adequate parking, and could we do this, or could we move that piece here? I think those are the discussions that we need to have, and I think we're getting there. We have something to move on, and this may not be exactly what winds up being approved. It may be somewhat different. So are we comfortable that we're in a good place now and we're going in the right direction?
Yes.
Okay, and then next step, we'll hear from staff about, hey, this is how we would like to do the public outreach. Council have any input in that? Right? Where'd Mr. Pauly go? Good?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Ms. Beam, this all sound reasonable to you as an engineer,
Planner, but yes.
planner?
But
Okay.
yes, it sounds.
City manager, are we missing anything? We good? Okay. Thank you so much. Good job. Thank you. All right. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of August the 1st? I think we did have one correction. I don't know, was that made already, or?
Yes, it's made in that packet.
It's made here. Okay. So any corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion?
To approve is corrected.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. Next item, persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are forms in the back of the room to request to speak. It is not too late. You can turn those in at the last minute. We do have a 30-minute time limit for this section of the meeting, so if for some reason this should extend beyond 30 minutes, we stop, we move on with the rest of the agenda so we can get our business conducted, and then we resume public comment at the end. That almost never happens, but I like to say that once in a while in case the night that it does happen, everybody doesn't think we just came up with this. So it is a rule. We do ask that speakers come to the podium, state their name and city of residence first, and there is a 3-minute time limit imposed on all members from the public. We do like to assure you that your comments are taken seriously and are followed up. We generally do not engage in conversation at the public comment portion because we have to move on to the agenda. However, we do take your comments and we do follow up. So, all right, I have a couple of requests. The first is from Rachel. I should remember this from last.
Those are for 8, number 8.
Number 8, okay. Both of them? So we don't have anybody to speak now? Really, all these people and nobody to address the council? Okay. Very good. I wasted all that time going into this rule and everything because I thought you guys were going to be eager to address this. Very good. Council, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays. The consent agenda is adopted. First item of business is the second public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1550, amending the code by adopting a new Article 11 of Charter 12 to be titled Historic Preservation. And I will open the public meeting, and our Executive Assistant to the City Manager, Jeannie Barlow, is here to explain. Welcome, Ms. Barlow. Mrs. Barlow.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, charter officers. My name is Jeannie Barlow, and I'm the assistant to the city manager. At the August 1st meeting, we held a public hearing and first reading of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which, if adopted, would add a new Article 11 to Chapter 12 of the city's Code of Ordinances. The Historic Preservation Ordinance has the following key provisions. The ordinance establishes a volunteer Historic Preservation Board, a voluntary historic preservation program, a process for national and local historic designations, criteria for the protection of exterior elements, a process for economic hardship exceptions, and a framework for property tax incentives on historically consistent improvements. At the August 1st meeting, the mayor and council approved the ordinance on first reading with the addition of language that would allow the Historic Preservation Board to authorize variances for owners of historic properties enrolled in the program. The new language is found under Section 12, 1158, B9. It's Historic Preservation Board powers and duties. And it says, to authorize variances from the provisions of sections specifically enumerated in Article 6 of this LDC for properties having the historic designation or contributing structures in a designated district where the board expressly finds that the applicant has demonstrated that a literal enforcement of the provisions will, in an individual case, result in undue and unnecessary hardship, and that the request ensures the public health, safety, and general welfare are protected. The board will follow the requirements of Section 12(7)(2)(c)(3), 4, and 5 when determining whether to grant or deny a variance request. And that's it for now.
Thank you, Mrs. Barlow. I do have a couple of requests to address the council from members of the public. The first one is Rachel Casson? Casson. I'm trying to remember from the last time you were here. I'm sorry. Mrs. Casson, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Casson. I live here in Terrace, and I own one of the historic homes. I came to speak at the last meeting on this topic. And I'm back again because I really believe in this new, what do you even call it, legislation, resolution to help protect the historic homes in our city. We only have so many of them left. They're part of our Floridian history. They're part of Temple Terrace's history. And this resolution just gives the citizens of Temple Terrace who care about these homes and who own these homes a voluntary program they can enroll in that benefits them, will protect their property into the future, and basically helps beautify our city and keep it the way we love it to be. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Casson. I have a request also from Mr. Galvin. Good evening, Mr. Galvin.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Likewise. My name is Steve Galvin. I live in the Pleasant Terrace neighborhood. I'm here in support of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Historic preservation is not just about the age of a structure, but also includes the important events or people associated with a building and the architectural significance of the structure. I'm hoping that the Historic Preservation Board will also give consideration to the many mid-century modern homes in Temple Terrace. This is a style of architecture highly valued in cities like Miami and Palm Springs, and Temple Terrace is fortunate to have a collection of homes built in that style. So please approve the ordinance that has been proposed. It is important to preserve the heritage of the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Going once, going twice. Okay, council members, are there questions of Mrs. Barlow? Councilmember Fernandez. I'm going to start looking this way first.
For clarification, because this is a question that has come up several times, and that is that the way the ordinance is written, that while there was a lot of thought given to the Mediterranean revival homes from the 1920s, this ordinance will allow homes that have met certain criteria of being historically significant, architecturally significant, or will have achieved a certain age to participate as that time period elapses.
That is correct. We are focused now on the Mediterranean revivals, the 1920s homes, but that does not preclude or prevent other mid-century moderns and other architectural styles from also coming into the program when the time is right.
How would a homeowner know if you own, let's say you own a mid-century modern house, how would you know when your house is eligible to participate?
Well, the criteria is outlined in the ordinance, and we reviewed that the last meeting. So basically, if your criteria is there and you can apply as a property owner, or someone on the board can apply for you as long as you are consensual. And that's how the process would get started. It would come to the board and they would make the determination, and there's a process to follow for the designation.
Okay, so now I want to ask about the language that we added for the combination of this board and giving them the ability to grant variances. So if I own a historic home, and let's go with the Mediterranean revival, because I know a lot of them are not within our current building code. So a lot of times they have to get a variance when structures are added or remodeling is done. If I own that house, I would go and I'm participating in the historic preservation plan. I would then go to this board and they would approve all of it, from a historical concept to also the variance of the actual building concept. Is that correct?
That's correct. Would you like the deputy city attorney to speak to that? Because
Well, no, I mean, because I know we talked about it last time. I just want to make sure that we're saying it plainly and clearly enough so that if somebody is concerned, because I just know it's come up a lot with people who have the Mediterranean revival homes, that they have to get variances because of the building codes that were in place when that structure was built. And it could be laborious if you are also having, if you have to go multiple places to get
that's
approvals.
the benefit of the program, because if you're in the program and you need a variance, you can do that before the Historic Preservation Board. If you're not in the program and you need to do the variance, of course, you'd have to go to the Board of Adjustment.
So that's it for me.
Other council member questions? If not, I will close the hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances by adopting a new Article 11 of Chapter 12 to be titled Historic Preservation, providing for purpose and intent for definitions for Historical Preservation Board, for review authority for National Register of Historic Places procedures, for historic designation, for certificates of appropriateness for maintenance and repair of landmarks, landmark sites, and property in historic districts, for stop work orders, for fees and enforcement, for procedures for ad valorem tax exemptions for historic properties, for civil penalties, providing for severability, for authority to codify, for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1550, amending the code by adopting new Article 11 of Chapter 12 to be titled Historic Preservation.
Second.
I'm going to give it to him.
Okay.
All right, Vice Mayor got it. Seconded by Vice Mayor Chambers. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Motion passes. Jeannie, would you and Marissa and Ernie please come up to the podium for just a second? Mr. Mueller. So I just want to thank you for the hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of hours that you guys have put into this. And the public, some of you may know, but I doubt that you have any idea what it took to get this passed. This went from a draft to us, and of course, you're not going to give that to the council members, and we mark it all up. We send it back. Then it goes to the attorney, and he marks it all up, and then went back. Then we send it to the other attorney, and she marks it all up, and it goes back again. And then we send it to the state of Florida, and they mark it all up, and it comes back. We sent it back with the revisions to the state of Florida so many times that it got to the point that the state of Florida was correcting their own revisions. Really, I'm not making that up. And then, of course, it had to come back for each of us to mark up again, and Jeannie to say, well, wait a minute, I'm trying to remember that we can't change that because that's one of the things the state of Florida put in. This was probably one of the most difficult ordinances to get passed. So, thank you. Appreciate it. And to my council members and the public, I want you to know that this passing of this ordinance is a historical event in itself. This process has been underway for at least 50 years, if not more. And we have never had a council that could get this done. And we have done it. So, thank you. This is the council that can get stuff done. Okay. Now watch, we'll go sideways on this one. First public hearing and second reading. This should be second public hearing. Okay. Second public hearing and second reading of
It was only the first public hearing.
So first public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1550.
No, it wasn't, we didn't have a public hearing at the first one. The first reading wasn't a public hearing.
Okay, we're going to do this. See, I told you we were going to mess this one all up. We're all giddy about getting the historical, right? So here we go. First public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1551, amending chapter 2 of the code entitled Purchasing. I will open the public hearing, and the city manager, Mr. Bayou, will explain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this is an ordinance seeking to bring our purchasing standards up to today's day and age in terms of costs. As was mentioned last time, the current ordinance says that anything that's purchased over $25,000 requires not only council approval, but requires a competitive bid process, which can be particularly onerous, expensive, and add significant delays to the tune perhaps of 2 to 3 months to any sort of acquisition that would meet that criteria. As I mentioned in the report, $25,000 back in 2001, which is the earliest I could find where this ordinance was already in effect, is the equivalent of $43,000 today. I included a list of communities that have updated their ordinance to reflect a higher threshold. at that meeting, Councilmember Schizler had a concern about moving to 50, and there was some discussion about going to 35, and then some further discussion. And what was at least agreed on that night in concept was that I would provide a report to council, perhaps on a quarterly basis, like I do for the other items that you receive every 3 months or so. That would outline purchases that were between that $35,000 to $50,000 range, if I understood correctly. And we're happy to do that, and that is pretty much everything that is contemplated in the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Bria. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Council member questions? Mr. Schishler, we all good?
Yeah, we're good. I'd like to maybe in the beginning have the report a little more often, but maybe we could do it monthly for a little while just to make sure that everybody's on the same page with this. But otherwise, moving it to quarterly works eventually, yes. That's the only thing. That's the only caveat. Just so everybody understands, it's I have no problem with the sealed bid process going to 50,000. I just was concerned with council relinquishing approval for anything over 35, but willing to do that provided we receive a periodic report as to what we're actually doing and when we're doing it. So that's the only question I have, and that doesn't affect my support for the overall ordinance approval.
Does that work, Mr. Bia?
I'm sure we can make it work.
Thank you.
Council members, is that request okay with everybody?
Yeah, I just have one comment, and that's just, it's for the public, that when we talk about spending and council approval, the overriding internal control of staff spending is the budget. So when we go through the budget process and we approve what each department is going to have available funds to spend, that includes what they're going to be spending for capital outlay, et cetera. Not that there won't be budget amendments and things throughout the year, but that's our overriding internal control. And then what comes in front of council for approval is more of a localized internal control.
Okay, thank you. Questions. Discussion comes later, so questions.
Okay.
Councilmember Schistler.
Okay, I'd just like to comment on that.
Oh, the time is right. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's all right.
When we do our budgeting, we do them in thousands of dollars. And I have to disagree with Councilman Fernandez respectfully. Councilman Fernandez, that is our responsibility. The final say-so comes when we vote on this in council meetings. The budget is, this is what we expect to do, but we don't know really how much the truck's going to cost. We don't know how much the playground equipment is going to cost. So that when we're doing an overall capital budget or an expenditure budget, we're dealing in tens of thousands, maybe even no less than $5,000. But that is an important factor. But the overriding final say-so is when we have the budget, when we have the request in front of us to spend $52,695.37. That's when the rubber meets the road, and that's where we have the final say in that. So I just like to clarify that we need, in my opinion, we need that reporting so that we can make sure that we're doing the best we can with spending public dollars. That's just the only comment that I have with that.
I don't disagree with you. But what I wanted to just make sure people knew is that we're not giving them a free-for-all to spend.
No, that's why we approve
Yes.
That's why we approve the final purchase.
Yes, which is the localized control. So.
Very good. Council members, are there questions? Very good. I will close the hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 5 of the Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances entitled Purchasing by amending the definition of lowest responsible bidder by adding a definition for sealed bids, amending Section 2-347 by replacing administrative regulations with operational procedures, deleting Section 2-349, amending Section 2-350 by increasing the threshold purchasing amount that will not require City Council approval, amending Section 2-376 by adding paragraph headers and deleting paragraph B, amending Section 2-378 to clarify it is for non-public works purchases of $50,000 or more, and adding language for email bids, amending section 2-379 to clarify it for public works contracts of $50,000 or more, providing a severability clause, effective date, authority to codify, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the ordinance 1551, amending Chapter 2 of the code entitled Purchasing.
Second.
Motion and a second. I have a question for the city attorney. So can you clarify for us and the public why this is the first public hearing and second reading? That's a little out of the ordinary. I just wanted everybody to understand what we're doing.
That's it. I was trying to rack my brain as to what happened at the last meeting. So my assumption is that this was presented to you by staff and by the city manager last time, but that we didn't call for public hearing the last time.
And it wasn't advertised.
And so an ordinance requires 2 readings, but it's sufficient to have only 1 public hearing. So,
Okay, so if this vote passes, this will be passed, and that will be it?
correct.
Okay, very good. Further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. The ordinance is passed on one of the readings. Next item is a second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1549, adopting rezoning of folio 201-584-0000 and addressed as 8701 Overlook Drive from the R10 zoning district to the PD zoning district. I will open the public hearing, and our Community Development Director, Mike Sherman, is here to explain, but I would ask anybody who intends to speak on this matter to first stand for the oath administered by the city clerk.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Mr. Sherman, oh, I'm sorry, City Attorney, would you please poll for ex parte communication?
If anyone has had any ex parte communication with regard to this matter, this is the time that you need to reveal it. If this was some written communication that you received, please provide a copy of that to the clerk for the record. And if it was an oral communication or a written communication, please state the sum and substance of the communication, with whom you had that communication, and the date that this occurred. And beginning with Councilperson Fernandez.
I have none.
I have had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you, City Attorney. Mr. Sherman, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, for the council's consideration in a second public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to rezone about 0.24 acres located at 8701 Overlook Drive from the R10 zone district to the PD zone district, and the folio number is 201-584-0000. The owners of the property are Race 1 LLC. The applicant is Development Support Services LLC. So this next slide shows 2 things. One is a location map on the right, where it shows the parcel in relation to the larger area on Overlook Drive and Grove Hill Road. And the map to the left is our Community Redevelopment Overlay Zoning District for the Community Redevelopment Area. The address again is 8701. The proposed zoning is PD, and it's about just under a quarter of an acre. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property so the ultimate development could be 4 attached single-family dwelling units. And per the Land Development Code, the applicant has to rezone the property from the R10 district to PD. All rezonings in the downtown area require that the zoning goes from the Euclidean zoning to the Plan Development Zoning District. And the subject property is generally surrounded by single-family and multifamily dwelling units, and that's shown in the map or the aerial to the right in that slide. So one thing that's unique about plan development that's not required by the Euclidean or straight zoning is when a plan development zoning district is applied for, there will be a conceptual master plan attached to that or adopted as part of the ordinance. And since this is the second public hearing, what I've done is shown the progress that the applicant and the city have made on this conceptual master plan. And the map to the left is what the council saw at the first public hearing. We sat down in the Development Review Committee and reviewed this conceptual master plan, and then working through the site plan process, there have been some revisions made to the master plan on the right, and that would be the concept plan that's going to go with this particular project. One thing that's changed is we've reduced the driveway and access points from 2 down to 1, and we've worked on site triangle and clear vision issues at the intersection as well. There's going to be 4 dwelling units, 2 parking spaces per each dwelling unit. The stormwater will be handled through a vaulted system as well. I kind of said that already, but there's 4 single-family homes, 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. There'll be a 3-foot landscape buffer on 3 sides. The front setback is 25 feet, side setbacks are 5. And in the back, there will be a fence, and that's one of the conditions of this rezoning approval, is there'll be a 6-foot fence separating the overlook park with this property here. Another thing that's required by the PD district is that there's elevations provided for the council to review of what the ultimate building design will look like. And again, this has been a work in progress, and the applicant has really come to the table to try and meet our code. I've been really impressed with their willingness to work with us. On the left is a front elevation, which is it's a really neat looking building, but it's kind of Key West-like and doesn't fit with our downtown design requirements for developments in our CRA. And it's the more Spanish Mediterranean architecture, which that front elevation on the right is a really beautiful building that they've made a lot of improvements to come to compliance with our codes. Here's the rear elevations. On the left is the original design, and on the right is the design that the applicant proposes to develop. And there's the side elevation again. On the left is the old elevation. On the right is the new elevation proposed by the applicant. There's been a few previous actions that have taken place. The Development Review Committee's worked with the applicant through this process, and we're continuing to work on a final site plan. We've met with them a couple of times. There's some very minor changes that still need to be made, and we'll be bringing that to the full set of plans for all horizontal development at the next 2 council meetings. On April 4th, the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission reviewed this, and what they're looking for is consistency with the city's comprehensive plan. They made that determination that it was consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and on May 16th is when the City Council held their first public hearing and approved at first reading of the ordinance to change the zoning from R10 residential 10 to the planned development district. So we're recommending approval for the second and final reading of the ordinance for rezoning reclassification application 23-1, changing the zoning classification for 0.24 acres from the R10 district to the PD district. We've made findings that this is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and we have 4 recommended conditions. I'm going to read them for the record. The first one is the planned development shall allow for uses in the MU 35 future land use district, including uses as outlined in the conceptual master plan, received as part of the application submitted to the Planning and Development Division by the applicant. Construction shall take place in accordance with the criteria and requirements of the City of Temple Terrace Land Development Code and Land Development Code and the Downtown Community Redevelopment Overlay Plan Zoning District, unless it's specifically outlined within these conditions. The second one is unless provided specific waivers as part of the PD approval, building architectural styles and land development code requirements must be consistent with the downtown CRA overlay district regulations and other regulations contained in the land development code. The third one is a 6-foot fence. Opaque fence shall be erected at the north property line, providing a buffer between the residents at Overlook and the Overlook City Park, and the applicant must begin and substantially complete the project within 2 years. The applicant is in the audience tonight, and I'm available to answer any questions that the City Council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. It looks like the applicant would like to say a few words. Good evening, sir.
Good Good evening, Council. I just want to say thank you. We are in agreement with staff and request your support. I just wanted to share with you that we did sharpen our pencil with the architect to get the design and look that you were looking for. And we have met with staff, and we're making all of the needed corrections to bring a project that you guys will be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, and I remember the Key West comment, and so I thank you so much for.
I would like to add, you guys are the board that gets things done, so thank you in advance.
Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Okay, very good. Council member questions for Mr. Sherman or for the applicant? Are there questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, rezoning .24 plus minus acres of real property within the downtown community development area located at the northeast corner of Overlook Drive and Grove Hill Road with an address of 8701 Overlook Drive from zoning classification single-family residential R10 to planned development PD, providing for amendment to the official zoning map of the city, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 1549 upon second reading.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion on the motion?
I have a comment I'd like to make.
Sure.
Just wanted to say thank you to the applicant. You've been here, I guess this is your third or fourth time here, at least three. But thank you for working with staff and doing everything that you could to bring this to fruition, and looking forward to seeing this built. Thank you very much.
Very good. All those in favor say, oh, sorry.
I'd like to suggest including the elevation picture, at least of the front elevation, as part of Exhibit B.
In the motion?
No, in the actual written ordinance. So it won't change, it's not going to change your motion at all, just it will add to the exhibit that is attached to the ordinance that you've been presented with. It's been presented here, but it is not attached to the ordinance itself.
Do we need to take action to make that happen, or does that already take care of it?
If you could, well, maybe just amend the motion to say that the front elevation be attached as part of Exhibit B.
I would like to amend my motion to include Exhibit B attached to the
Front elevation.
front elevation.
Okay.
We sufficient?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Ordinance is adopted. I too would like to add my thing. This has been a long time. I remember the first time you came to the council and with another concept, and there was a lot of back and forth, and then you came back before us with something else. I mean, we've been back and forth a lot, and so changeover of council members, changeover of community development staff, you've persevered on this, and so we're very happy that you did. I think we're all excited about your project. And thank you for doing business with us. I know you went out of your way to do that, so thank you. All right, next item is a resolution awarding a 5-year licensing and software services agreement to Chinosa Systems Corp., DBA Pro Phoenix. And Deputy Police Chief Rob Staley is here to explain.
Good evening. 14 months ago, city staff from police department, fire department, and IT all endeavored to seek a suitable replacement for our current CAD system. We reviewed dozens of different CAD systems.
Chief, could you tell them what CAD is? The public doesn't know what that is.
So CAD is basically the brains of dispatch. That's how they
Computer-aided dispatch.
Computer-aided dispatch. That's how they communicate with the officers, with the firefighters, how we write reports, and so on. The CAD platform that we chose was Pro Phoenix, and for a number of reasons. It's a viable platform that's trusted amongst 600 customers over 26 states. So it's vetted, and it's a good platform. With this platform, you have to choose a platform that can work for police and fire, which a lot of platforms don't work for both, and this one does that. We're seeking to use $525,855 of residual ARPA funds for the from the IT broadband project. And that money is not being used right now. We'd like to use that for the ProPhoenix software. So this, we're using a piggyback clause from Victoria County, which is in Texas, and the city attorney has looked at this and vetted it. Our finances looked at it, and hopefully we can use that money there. The total cost for the project is $1,007,579.42. So we're hoping to seek this money from the ARPA funds to facilitate this expenditure. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members' questions. Councilmember Fernandez.
Just for clarity, the $1,007,000 is currently part of your budget, and that would be paid in installments?
So we currently have a CAD system that we pay annually for software maintenance. This does increase that cost associated with that. What we're hoping to do is offset that each budget year. For the first year, they're not giving us an annual fee on that maintenance, so we can hopefully get that on year 2 and then the subsequent years to year 6. What that does is it looks like $500,000 over the course of 6 years. So it's essentially doubling what we currently pay for our maintenance.
Okay, so the first year cost would be anticipated as $1 million.
No, the first year cost
I'm
is
trying to figure out what we're supposed to be paying and what we're offsetting.
Okay. We'll get clarity on this for everybody. So, yes, City Manager.
So just to try and clarify that. So the $525,855 is actually the implementation. So we're going to implement the system to get it to go live. That would be to go from our current vendor to this new system. What Deputy Chief gave you, that $1 million number, is over 5 years. He gave you the total cost over 5 years with all the support maintenance payments over the next 5 years, in addition to the implementation. That's what that million and whatever it was, right. 25 comes out to.
Okay, so it's the $1 million divided by 5 is the annual cost, but to actually implement the transition is the $525,000.
Well, the 525 is the transition, so that's your sort of your capital outlay, if you will. The other costs we're going to program in the budget. So when we come back to you in the future budgets, FY25, 26, and so on, we'll have the support costs that are outlined in the chart that was in the backup there. So for example, it's $87,000 year 2, $91,000 year 3, et cetera. Those costs will be programmed later.
Okay, that's all I was trying to clarify.
Okay, and I think Councilmember Schisto has a question, but I want to, before we move too far, we're throwing a lot of acronyms out here in the public. It's like, what are they even talking about? So CAD, as we talked about, is computer-aided dispatch. That's what the dispatch center, the 911, the radios, the computers, and all of that, and the records management system that's used. They write reports, and that's where the records are maintained. ARPA funds, or the American Rescue Plan Act, this is part of the funding that the city received from the federal government in 21, I think it was, 21. We got millions of dollars, but it was earmarked for could be used for certain projects. At the time, one of the projects the city identified as something we wanted to do was we set about $1 million, give or take, of that money aside to put Wi-Fi in public parks and so forth. We've since had some meetings and drilled into that a little deeper and determined that we don't really think we need to spend that kind of money to put Wi-Fi in some of the neighborhood parks. So what we're doing is the Chief is asking the council to divert a certain portion of that money that we were going to do Wi-Fi with to be used towards doing this instead. So I hope I made it better and not worse, but we're using CAD and ARPA and everybody's like, what are we doing here? So, Councilmember Schister.
Yes, Chief, this isn't necessarily for you, it's more for Mr. Ingham. Do we need to notify the feds when we repurpose this money for the broadband? I don't remember because I think council passed the initial funding ideas as a resolution.
No, we just need to, when the spending starts, when it's let me back. when the money is obligated, when we do the purchase order, we will have to put that on the next quarterly ARPA report and add it as a new project.
Okay, the ARPA deadline is December 31st, 24?
2024, yes, to obligate funding.
Understood.
Yeah.
Now, Chief, how long is it going to take to implement this?
So that's one issue with the project. It's probably going to take about a year to implement this project. But what we're doing is we're paying for that initial setup first. By paying for that initial setup, we've obligated those monies to ProPhoenix for, that year that's going to take for us to set that up. Realistically, it's probably going to take a year. We could potentially get it done sooner than that, so hopefully we can.
Who's taking the lead on the project? Who's going to be the main implementation?
So Cheryl Shingleton is going to be the lead on the project, but it's going to be an all-hands-on-deck thing. We've already discussed this with ProPhoenix, is that we want to implement this as soon as possible, just to replace our current CAD system.
Okay, cool. I think it's a good idea.
Other questions, Council? I have one, Chief. So the data that we currently have in the database, every time you migrate to a new system, there's always the question of how that data is going to migrate over.
Right.
So how is that process going to work between these two systems?
It should work fine. Until they get in there and start actually migrating the data, we'll have a better understanding of what it's going to look like moving forward and our timeline on that. From the meetings that we've had with our current data compared to what can be cannibalized by the new CAD system, it doesn't appear like that's going to be an issue. It shouldn't be an expedited, or it shouldn't be a difficult process.
Okay. And the reason I asked the question is this. In the agreement, the contract, do we have some protection? Suppose that, because we all know how IT stuff works, they promise the moon and it never works out, right? So do we have some protection in the case that they come in here and they say, okay, you're currently using, Acme, and now you're going over to ProPhoenix, and ProPhoenix says, oh yeah, we'll migrate your data, no problem. That always works seamlessly. But when they get in the building, they go, oh, we didn't know you were using Acme 7.5. That doesn't work. So now you need to buy a new server because we can't migrate this. Are we protected from that scenario so that if that happens?
Look at AD.
Yeah, so we're also going to be purchasing a server. The thing is, with our archive data in our current system, a lot of that, when our current CAD vendor took over, converted it to PDF, which is probably going to be what it gets converted to into ProPhoenix. So that's why that shouldn't be that too difficult, and then everything else is already,
But when it's converted to PDF, is it still live data, searchable and retrievable and all? Okay, all right, so we're good on that. We're comfortable with, okay, good, thank you. Other questions?
Sally gulps.
What's that?
Sally gulps.
Yeah,
We're good.
Yeah, we're good, okay. Council, there's no other discussion. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the resolution awarding a 5-year licensing agreement and software services for a new computer-aided dispatch system for public safety.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you and congratulations. I know this is a pain in the neck to.
it's a big win
Yeah.
for a lot of people, and a lot of people will be very happy because of this.
We'll talk in 3 years. Hopefully you'll still be saying the same thing. Right? I've been through this so many times. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, next item is related, I believe, resolution approving the purchase of computer and survey equipment in support of what we just did. And Deputy Chief will now explain that.
No acronyms this time. Our city information technology department has met with ProPhoenix and discussed what the minimum standards are that we need in order to implement the new software. We do have a server in place here on site, but the server it has all of our current CAD software on it, which takes up the majority of that server. So we need a new server to implement our new software, and that old server will be used for something else after the CAD has been implemented. To that end, staff is recommending purchasing 2 PowerEdge servers, 1 Dell storage array, and 6 Intel i5 computers. The total amount of this purchase is $77,533.67, and it's made from Vitecchio, which is under Florida State contract. I stand for questions.
Good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Council members, questions? Vice Mayor Chambers.
This server that we're going to purchase, is it going to eventually move to the new Hardin DOC building once it's built, or does it stay here?
It's probably a question for Sally.
City Manager.
So actually, very good timing. We just had a meeting earlier this week about the same issue. So the plan as it stands right now is, the city's very fortunate. We're in the process of building 2 Hardin facilities, a utilities building as well as a new EOC facility. And we looked at the space layout, and we feel right now that it makes sense to move the IT department, so including the staff as well as the servers, over to the new utilities facility. So that's the plan right now. So it will be in a hardened building.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fernandez.
So with the purchase of this equipment, so right now, the existing server is hosting your data that you've accumulated over years and years and years.
Correct.
But you've said that that data will migrate into the new system. Will this physical equipment be sufficient to house the past data and future, is there room for the future?
Great question. It is more than enough for that. Especially we'll be empty out of that second server. And another thing that we should probably touch on when we're talking about servers is that the Axon program that we're looking at in budget is putting all of that data, all of our body cam footage to the cloud, so that will also save on server space. I don't see an issue with our current data being too much for the new server.
Okay, so then my other question is about the cost or the lifespan of this equipment. How long are we anticipating that we can keep this in operation without having to replace it? That might be a question.
Probably a Sally question.
It's a 5-year.
I think we've maintained our current server since we've gone to mobile tech, so.
It's a 5-year agreement for the software, but we'll own this equipment.
The servers, we do a 5-year cycle on them to make sure that they're all up to date and keep everything going. We do a 5-year recycle on servers and PCs.
Okay.
Council members, questions? Okay, very good. If there are no further questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve the purchase of computer and server equipment in support of a new CAD software.
Second.
Motion and a second. Very good. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Chief, for all your work on this. Thank you, Sally. Is there any carryover council business? Councilmember Schisler.
I had hoped to ask some questions during the CRA, but I didn't have a chance to. I get a lot of questions regarding the Enigma property. Can we get a quick update on what's happening? I got a few things, so Enigma, what's the status of that?
They both look so excited.
I know. Sorry about that.
So that's a really good and interesting question, Councilmember Schisler. So they were moving along really well, and they wanted to do some additions with some expanding the walkway out on the, I guess it's one floor, but they want to do some expansion. We told them we needed to have them come through the site plan review process, and they made the building improvements without getting approved. So we put a stop work order on the property. They've recently submitted site plans to show that the changes to the existing site plan that in some instances they've already done. But it will be coming back before the council for approval, hopefully in the next month or so, or consideration for the next month or so, in the next month or so.
Okay. All right. Follow-up question. And this is just I saw the Coke building sold.
Yes.
Any idea what's going in there?
So we've got, yes, sir, we've met a couple times with those folks, and they are, the name of the business escapes me, but they're in the telecom park, and they'll be moving out to the Coke building. It's a medical.
It's Florida Orthopedic.
There you go. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's, I don't even know if I was told the exact name of the building, but it's medical Florida Orthopedic. They'll be moving out here. Most of it will be interior remodeling and renovation, so it will be, I would imagine, based on what we've been told, just building permits. But there will be some side improvements. We're encouraging them to beef up the landscaping and make it as pretty as possible as well.
Cool. I got a couple of phone calls on the new building, and I'm pretty sure it's in the city, but the building next to Ace Hardware, where the back end of it faces 56th Street, or at least that's what it appears to be. I don't remember that coming before council.
It did. It's been a while.
It's been a long time. I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It is in the city.
Yeah.
It is in the
It just looks weird, the way they're backing up onto 56th Street. And then last but not least is downtown redevelopment area, particularly Waverly Apartments look great. I was down there today, and I must have had 5 phone calls last week about this down there by itself. Waverly Terrace looks great, but the Fountains Plaza
Terrible.
It's terrible. I mean, the landscaping debris is all over the place. There's trash in the bushes, the driveway. I know this is probably more of a Tom Baroni thing, but the trash around the dumpsters, it's horrible. And then the fountains, I thought they were going to get those fixed. There's bottles in there and trash and
We have daily
debris.
fines running.
Pardon me?
He's been to the code.
I know, but it's just we got it's.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, city manager.
So relative to the fountain shops, you are correct. There's a number of issues. As the mayor noted, there are daily fines. The owner has been found guilty by the Code Enforcement Board on at least 2 occasions already. This is commercial property, so the city attorney and I have been talking about what our next steps may be, and we may end up in some sort of court action here because the owner has been nearly non-responsive. And I say nearly non-responsive, has not showed up to code enforcement hearings, has had other issues with the city where calls, letters, emails are just, he doesn't take the time to respond or pick up the phone. So we're getting to a point where we're going to have to look at this, but it's not that easy. You know, there's always some complicating factors, so we're going to have to work through those. But we'll bring a strategy and relay it to the city council once we have it.
Thank you. Okay.
Where are we? We're in council business. Carryover council business. Councilmember Abel.
I have a request, and I will explain myself, but I was hoping that we could rename the fun fact to a historical fact. I love the alliterative value of Fernandez fun fact. However, as I've been researching, I find things that are not fun. And, you know, there's some parts about history.
Like taxes?
Well, I'm not trying to bash your fun fact. But some things about history are not the most, proud moments, but they're also really helpful in us understanding, how things were and how things are now even. But I feel like it's sort of glib for me, or even disrespectful to say, my fun fact today is about something really that, not good. So I was hoping that we could make that change so that when facts like that come up, it doesn't seem kind of like it's a joke. Are you all okay with that?
Yes.
I got a problem with
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Your idea, you're good, right?
I didn't need it named after me. I just.
No, I know, but it was, I don't know how I'm going to do this now. The Fernandez historical fact doesn't have the same ring to
No,
it.
you don't have to.
Just historical.
Just be historical.
All right. You kill all my, I try to have a little fun once in a while, you kill it.
You can have fun with this too.
Okay, all right, so we're good. We're good?
No,
Yes,
I-
Councilmember Fernandez.
So this has come up, and I don't know how often it's been discussed here before, but it's come up to me, and it's about the Airbnb or the VRBO rentals in the city, and what, or if anything, we can do, because it's unlike a typical rental home where a family moves in and rents it on a consistent basis. There's a lot of turnover and activity, and it can be disruptive. And in particular, there's one right now that the neighbors are finding very disruptive. So I don't know, we don't have to have a decision right now. I just am asking for this maybe to be put on a council agenda, or if we can do something to regulate the disruptiveness of it.
So this is a topic that we have been largely preempted by the state. So I'm going to ask the city attorney, who's much more of an expert on this than I am, to probably answer your question right now.
Our best way to deal with it, given the fact that we are prevented from making any special ordinances to limit short-term rentals in really any way, is to enforce the ordinances that we already have. So if there is a noise problem, we do have a noise ordinance, and whoever is there must comply with our noise ordinance. So what to do then would be to contact the police department as a non-emergency call that there's a noise issue going on. If there is a trash problem, then we need to, somebody would need to report that to our code enforcement staff. Parking, depending whether it's on the grass or out in the street, that would either go to codes or it would go to the police department. So you have to, we're stuck attacking each or approaching each problem separately with the right department of the city. As you all probably know, if you did not have a limiting ordinance in place by July 2011, you are preempted from having an ordinance that limits the length of the rental period or how many people can be there. And I believe we have a rental housing program still, so that people do need to register if they're renting this out, and they need to give us a name of somebody who's responsible for that property, who can be available within a relatively short amount of time to deal with any issue there.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and then I have one other thing, and that is, apparently the Spectrum channel that the city meetings are broadcast on, it doesn't work at my house. I don't know if it's out everywhere, but if it's a Spectrum thing or if it's specific to my boxes, but I just
don't know,
wanted to know.
works at mine.
Okay.
It does.
So it must be my boxes. I just wanted to make sure if there was an issue, to find out if there's an issue. That's not just my house.
We can try and reach out to Spectrum to see if there's been any issue. That we're not aware of that, but it doesn't
Okay.
mean it hasn't happened.
Okay, other council business? Carryover council business. Okay, new business or board reports. Councilmember Schisler.
Yes, a little bit of both. At the last meeting, there was a request. It's not carryover. This is a board report from Hart. And this was the Hart Board requested that the CEO Drainville present the criteria that was utilized in the decision to not, or to not sell the property to the city directly. And the board, the Hart Board, and Mayor Ross attended the last board meeting and asked them to reconsider, to which there was discussion subsequent in the meeting, and the CEO was asked to present to the Finance and Audit Committee on the 21st next week as to what the criteria was, and then it'll be a presentation of the full board in September for reconsideration of that proposal. So it's coming back, it's circling back again, and I'll obviously let everybody know, and perhaps the city attorney can tune into that meeting from the 21st, and if there's anything that we can do regarding that.
When is that meeting? The board, not the audit committee.
The board meeting will be the public hearing at 5:30 at night on the 12th of September.
Okay.
Okay.
September 12th?
September 12th.
At 5:30 p.m.?
Because of public hearing for the budget, so that's
And it'll be at the Hart office?
correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Then there was another discussion about the overall shelter project, particularly as it deals with the Amazon bus stop location. Currently, Hart's in a very weird situation with a new law that passed in the state of Florida regarding deductibility of union dues out of paychecks and so forth. But the union has, not the local union, the national union has filed a complaint against it. And as a result, Department of Labor is sitting on funds, grant funds, which HART's been using to build these shelters. So I had been promised a report by end of day today, and I checked a little while ago, and I hadn't received it as to what the current status of it was. But I will let the city manager know what the status of that is, and he can report it as necessary. And then last but not least, Mr. Harbison had commented that the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club SAC meeting committee had met, and we did that last week. It was a very good meeting. We cleared the air on a lot of timing issues as to what's going on with historical issues with the loans and so forth, and the property taxes. So, as he said, there's better communication with the changeover in the board. It was difficult to get everybody together in one room. They understand now that as part of our legal agreement that we have to meet on a quarterly basis, as well as get the financial documents. And he's already left, but one of the finance committee members was here, and he promised me that we would have updated balance sheets and P&Ls through June, sometime tomorrow, and I'll pass those on when I do get them. But I do feel good that, we talked about other things, the growth plans for food and beverage, as well as capital issues, primarily with the status of the irrigation remediation. We know, everybody knows that we helped with the irrigation project a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, the sprinkler heads leaked and shorted themselves out, so they couldn't be controlled by the cell phone central use. So the new heads have been finally received from China, and I don't know if you noticed, they were out there fixing them last week. Mm-hmm. So that'll be done here very shortly. And then last but not least is the ever popular tree issue. So that told them get caught up, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll go from there. Now, for if anybody had any questions on the board reports, new business. I was recently approached by a local community leader who, in coordination with a faith-based community leader, wanted to try to initiate a community coalition to help with our homelessness issue with the city of Temple Terrace. Now, it's not a huge overpower. We're going to have people living in the sidewalks, but since the development of Amazon and the VA properties, there were several homeless encampments that were that existed, and they had to disperse. Some of these individuals have migrated. Some of them are downtown. Some are by Enigma. There were people in the wintertime sleeping on the sidewalks in front of Carrabba's and so forth. They're behind McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, and they're out on 301. There's some. I spoke with Chief Albano about this last year, and he and Chief Staley had developed an internal program for TTPD that had been developed and was dealing with many of these issues. I'd like to propose that we get the leaders together, come up with something that could be more or less community-wide, that could assist and augment with the programs that are in place and help with whatever issues that we do have. As we move forward with the development plans for Springdale Pond and Parcel C, also known as Riverside Park, we want to put our best foot forward. And if there's people out there that need our help, we can't do it all ourselves, but with the two organizations that have had offered to step up and work with the city on this, I think we should be able to do something. The community leaders are Ellen Snelling and I'm going to say this wrong, Kamitra Edwards. And the organizations are the Temple Terrace Republican Club and the Grace Family Church. They've offered to come up with something, and I don't know how we would proceed with this, but if nothing else, go back to the city manager and the police department and get everybody together and see if we can help, make this happen in the future.
The only thing I would comment on that, council member, is that if there's a new coalition that needs to plug into what already exists, because there's already a
Agreed.
countywide approach to this.
Okay.
There's a countywide homeless coalition already that Tampa's plugged into, we're plugged into. I don't know if Plant City is or not. Crisis Center's plugged into their metropolitan ministry. So there's already a coalition that exists, and I'm sure they could use supplemental help. But we want to make sure that whatever we do here plugs in so that whatever we're doing is consistent, wherever we're moving people is consistent with the overall plan, not, so we want
Not
to
trying
make.
to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. I'm sure.
Augment and make
Yeah.
it all encompassing.
And our contact, I mean, I'm not speaking for the city manager, but our contact here is the police department, the
Right.
COU, the unit that, community liaison unit, so they would be, I mean, I'm not speaking for Carlos, but that's the contact. And the sheriff's office is in there, Tampa Police is in there. Like I said, I don't know about Plant City, but.
I just want to get everybody together
Yep.
that can help and give them direction.
And I think that old restaurant property, demolition of that is going to have a positive impact on us too. So, yes, sir, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, and a lot of our local churches, they have programs for the homeless too. And years ago, there was an organization, a Temple Terrace Ministerial Association, where the ministers of all the churches met, and they were an official organization. That's been going on a long time. So I just want to know, do we have any, in our city, is there anybody that coordinates or talks to the churches so we all know what each church is doing?
I would imagine COU, yeah. Come on up, chief. Yeah, COU would be the community liaison unit in the
Okay.
police department.
That's exactly right. CLU reaches out to, I mean, their network is massive. When they take the county, the churches, the resource centers, they reach out to all of them and make sure that we get the resources to the people that need them the most.
Okay, so a church isn't just working on their own, they have access to all the, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it's really important to plug in because you can be well-intended trying to do the right thing and actually do all the wrong things.
Yes.
With the
Yeah.
best of intentions, and you create a problem that other people are like, oh no, we've been trying to move that here, and now so you have to be really careful to coordinate. Councilmember Fernandez.
I have an item. I read that there are new ARPA grants, or more funding has been released for ARPA grants. Is that?
You sure you're not thinking of the bipartisan infrastructure bill?
I could be thinking of that.
I think that's probably, I could be wrong, but I think that's,
it was 500 million.
yeah.
I just,
The SMART grants,
they're grants, and I can't now remember the acronym that went with them.
the 500 million was the SMART grants. It's for
They're new,
transportation.
Cheryl sent the email.
Yeah, it's for
out.
transportation.
So, but my question is, any of these newly released funds, do we have any projects that we could submit for funding that might either be using some other, I don't want to take away from other grant funding, but if we're funding anything out of the general fund or out of gas taxes or things that we could accumulate for future projects, if there's anything that we can fund out of these funds.
I received that same notification, and I'm sure our staff, and particularly utilities and with streets and engineering is on top of that too, but we'll look at the requirements, and if there's anything that we feel we have a project that would meet the criteria, then we would look to apply for the funds. Doesn't guarantee we would get those funds,
Right.
but yeah, anytime we can and defer from the general fund, that's a good idea, and obviously it's something we'd strive for.
That's it.
Okay. So I have something real quick, if you'll bear with me for just a minute. Councilmember Abel and I went to the Florida League of Cities conference last week, and one of the things that we attended, I think you attended, we didn't sit together for this one, but there was a briefing on the new financial disclosure law that was passed, the Form 6 instead of Form 1. So for the public's benefit, currently all of your elected officials and your board members also on certain boards, code board has to do this. There's certain, Mr. Ritter probably has to do it as a you fill out a Form 1, which is a limited financial disclosure. That's what we do now. It tells the public what our sources of incomes are, what our sources of income are, what our major liabilities are, those kinds of things. What we're now going to be compelled to do is fill out a full financial disclosure, or Form 6. Mrs. Donahue, you'll be glad you're not on council anymore. So I thought, well, this thing sounds really terrible. It's awful. It's having, it can't be as bad as all that. Well, it is. And so I'll try to keep the commentary out of it, but this is what we're going to have to do. So effective January 1st, the Commission on Ethics will start an online portal. It's not up yet. It'll be up January the 1st. In March, you will be sent an email that will ask you to create an account. If you want to create this account prior to March, when you get this email, you can contact them and they'll send you the email. Like if you're sitting down in January and you want to do it, you can contact them. It's all going to be online. No more paper forms, no more supervisor of election involvement, no more any of that. It's an online portal. If you're like me and your home address is at least supposedly confidential, you have to fill out a form ahead of time. That form has to be notarized and mailed to them ahead of time. Filing is for a specific date. It's no longer for the whole year. So the filing information on your filing is for that day. Now, it can be on any day you pick from December the 31st, the last day of the year that you're reporting on, all the way up to July 1st, which is the deadline. So if you're sitting at your computer on March 15th, March 17th, which you shouldn't be doing because it's St. Patrick's Day, but if you're sitting at your computer on March 17th, you could pick that day if you wanted to do that day. So you pick the date. So if you had something to report, but you sold it or whatever in November, you don't have to report it anymore because it's not on that day. Everything you post, everything you file in that system is going to be posted online. So nobody has to make a public records request for anything. They just go on the they go on the Florida Commission of Ethics website and they know all your finances for that day. They don't have to do a public records request. It's just there from your phone, right? So what's on there? You have to report all assets over $1,000. Everything. Bank accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real property with amounts and values for each one. Checking account, savings account, and you've got to put how much money you have in every one of those. That has to be on there. Joint property, if you own your home with your spouse, if your name is on it, that has to be reported also. Florida prepaid college accounts count. That has to be on there. Vehicles, boats, personal jets, yachts, all that stuff has to be on there. If it's over $1,000, it has to be reported. There are a few exceptions. They're very narrow. Household property can be summarized, so you don't have to report your couch or your refrigerator. You can summarize that with a value for your household items. Tools, guns, coin collections are considered household items, so they can be summarized. Obviously, you could probably run into trouble if you have a $200,000 coin collection and you summarize it at $800 or something. Another exception is property owned by an LLC or corporation. So if you are in commercial real estate or something and you own things, but that building is actually owned by an LLC, it's not owned by you, you don't have to report it. Irrevocable trusts do not have to be reported because the assets belong to the trust and not you, but revocable trusts do have to be reported. Income. All sources of income over $1,000. So the city's out for me. The source of that income and the amount of that income has to be reported. It's gross amounts, not net, so it's not what you had left over after you paid taxes.
So if you have a spouse, is your source of income their income?
Nope, yours, just yours. Right, unless they, for some reason, get a check in your name or you're in a business or something like that. Secondary income gets a little complicated. You're gonna have to talk to Pam about this one if it applies. This is what you make from a business. If you, and I'm not gonna harp on this because I don't know if it applies, but if you own 5% or more of the business and the business makes over $1,000 a year and a single customer provides 10% or more of that business, you have like one big client, you gotta name that client with the amount that they've contributed to your business. If you want, right, if every shred of privacy is just so far gone from your life that you want to, you can just submit your income tax return in lieu of reporting your income and that will suffice. If you do that, however, it's up to you to redact any information like social security number, date of birth, that because they don't redact anything, what you turn in, they post. And they don't consider themselves to be the custodian of public records, they consider themselves to be the poster of public records. So it's up to you to redact everything. Liabilities is the same thing. Any liability that's $1,000 or over has to be disclosed along with the amount. Joint liabilities, if you have a mortgage with your spouse, that's a liability, you have to report it if your name is on it. The only exception to this, and the only thing I can think of here, is that the legislators themselves didn't want to have to do this. The exception is credit card debt. And I don't know why that's an exception other than perhaps they didn't want to have to report their credit card debt, I guess. I don't know. Some things that they stressed, the redaction thing, they said that over and over and over again. What you post is online is going to be online. They're not the custodian, they're the poster. If your record has personal information on it and it gets out to the public, it's on you. They must have said this at least 50 times, because I guess they're anticipating some problems, to call them if you have any questions. Don't guess on it. Don't be wrong. Call them. And they have friendly operators standing by, they assured me. These are my notes, right? So don't take this, I'll share this with the clerk so she can give it to you, but these are my notes. They certainly don't substitute for legal advice from the city attorney or your CPA or something like that. And speaking of that, there is a provision for having your CPA or attorney file this for you, but there are some things you need to set up in the portal to allow them access to file on your behalf. So, if anybody was considering running for city council, they probably, we're all going to run unopposed now. And I did talk to a couple of mayors from other cities in the state that, I don't know if this will happen, but they said, one city told me their entire city council is going to resign in December. They've publicly announced that they're all resigning. They're not going to do this. So I talked to somebody else who said, well, 4 of our council members out of 5 said that they're going to resign because they're just not going to do this. So, of course, the state people who were there to present this said, this is like, oh, this is really good for you. It just doesn't taste good. So, anyhow, sorry to make you sit through that, but I'm sorry, I just don't see how this is going to make us more transparent for you. Okay, I'll get off of it.
Doesn't the city manager have to file Form 6?
No, they were exempted, the original version of the bill, yeah.
Okay, they changed that.
But I guess they finally realized that we're never going to be able to hire anybody. Yeah. And, people were complaining and grumbling and asked the Commission on Ethics people, was like, where do you expect us to find council members? And like, oh, it's not that bad. And, people are always going to step up. And, well, we'll see if that's true or not. So, okay. See, I was all happy before. Now I'm angry. Okay. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite up Lori Hayes, our Marketing Communications Officer. In your backup this evening, there is what we're calling a 2-year sort of enhancement work plan. We wanted to make sure this was brought to the council's attention and to the public's attention because marketing and communications, that's something we all think is important, but it gets overlooked sometimes because it sort of falls into the background of what we typically do on a day-to-day. And Lori and Brian and Nathan do an outstanding job for us, and we wanted to make sure that you were aware of some of the ideas they had for the next couple of years, in addition to the things they've already been doing, and get your input. If you like the direction, that's great. If you'd like us to see, if you'd like us to explore a different avenue, we can do that as well. So I'll leave it to Lori.
Mayor, let it go. I'm Lori Hayes. I'm the Marketing and Communications Officer for the City of Temple Terrace. Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our plans for the future, as well as sort of before we look ahead, kind of reviewing where we are and how we got here. I was hired as the city's first Marketing and Communications Officer in July of 2017. Nathan followed kind of shortly after that, first as an intern and then as a part-time marketing communications assistant. We were very fortunate, and thank you for supporting this, that we added Brian to the team in October of last year. Brian had been making magic happen in the booth for years, but now he's one of ours. He continues to handle the meetings, but he's also involved in the production of videos, which was the one thing that I really thought was lacking in our communication effort. So I wanted to go through just very briefly the functions of the division, just so you can get an overall picture of the things that, the pies that we have our fingers in. I oversee the city's website. We did a total redesign in 2020. The key things that we were looking at that point were accessibility and usability. When we started, the website was in the area of 20% in compliance with ADA requirements. It now, as of yesterday, was 74%. We've waffled between 75 and 80%. 100% is not a realistic goal. You're never going to have 100% compliance for a website, but we've made huge strides. A lot of the improvements that we made had to do with converting the forms that were either paper forms that you had to download and fill out by hand or non-fillable PDF forms into online fillable forms. And that includes the general job application, and we just, in the not too distant past, completed the 45-page police application is now online. And I have heard from the police department that that has made a huge difference in recruiting. I know when I applied here, I filled out with a pen and I brought it to City Hall. So one of the first things I did when I started working here was change that, because I thought we needed to modernize a little bit. I'm also in charge of the design and the layout of Playbook, which in the past couple of years we have gone from 2 times a year to 3 times a year. It is also available on the website as an interactive flipbook. We're going to make some enhancements to that very soon, but it's pretty cool right now. You can download it, you can bookmark it. All of the links are live if you're accessing it on your phone. If there's a number for more information, all you have to do is push it and it'll make the call for you. I do the posters, the flyers, the brochures, and all the other publications, providing support for public works initiatives, for park and rec events, and any other programs and services that we need to get the word out about. I maintain the LED signs at City Hall, Lightfoot, Public Works, and the library. A couple years ago, we added Text My Gov and also just a telephone helpline, and that was at the request of City Council. We didn't want to be completely internet-based in our communication efforts, so that gives people another opportunity to get our information. As far as social media, I do the city Facebook page. We launched Instagram 2 years ago, also at the request of council. The police and fire departments have an Instagram and a Facebook page, and the library has a Facebook page. As far as multimedia efforts, we started a couple years ago, and Nathan was hugely instrumental in this, and now Brian is there to sort of, step up our game. We have service videos that we have produced and filmed, including the welcome video most recently. We have videos that explain recycling, sanitation, the water treatment plant, traffic control. There's a history tour. We've highlighted some of the amenities at the Family Recreation Complex and the Public Library. We've done promotional videos to promote the bike trails, the new bike trails, and event recaps just to show people what they missed. So hopefully that they'll come next time. We broadcast all of these to the cable channel, as well as on the monitors at City Hall, at Lightfoot, and the Family Recreation Complex. And when we broadcast meetings like this on our cable channels, they are now captioned, which was another ADA requirement. We also, in the past couple of years, added a city park app, which highlights all the amenities at our city parks. I also serve as a public information officer, so I create and maintain relationships with the local media, and I'm very lucky to, know a lot of them, and, they have me on speed dial, so, we are getting more and more positive publicity, and I'm very proud of that. I regularly pitch stories to local contacts. I act as the spokesperson for the city when I'm needed. I coordinate press conferences if we need them, and I am on call 24/7, including, for example, on Saturday afternoon when we unfortunately had the armed robbery. We got the bolo out, we got it on Facebook, and the press release went onto the website and went out to the contacts. A relatively recent thing that we've done is paid advertising, kind of to reach beyond our borders, which was another city council request. We've done regional promotion with a presence in the Tampa Bay Rays and the Tampa Bay Lightning yearbooks. These ads highlighted the recreational opportunities in the city. We've done international promotion via the Invest Tampa Bay magazine, which also featured an editorial highlighting the economic development opportunities in the city that included an interview with Mayor Ross. Just this past July, I worked out a partnership with the Tampa Bay Times, and we placed ads for the July 4th festivities in the Sunday paper prior to the event. There's a whole bunch of special projects that have come up over the years, the banner projects along 56th Street. We partner with Bike Walk Tampa Bay to not only do the Bike with the Mayor, but also we've now added the History Walk. We've done as much as we can to support public art, including, if you hadn't noticed, the intersection art on 56. All of those art pieces have QR codes that link to a bio and some information about the design of the art there. We collaborate with Florida College for the annual Government Day. I do a Veterans Day recognition with yard signs. I'm involved in the centennial planning with city events, and I'm very proud to say that Temple, the orange mascot, was my idea. So just to show you a little about what all of this means, here are just a few analytics. On our website, there are nearly 3,500 subscribers to the various things, the news and calendar alerts, as well as the week in review. There have been nearly 28,000 views of our website in the past 3 weeks. The most popular searches that happen on the site are for jobs, online payments, and Parks and Rec. On social media, Instagram, we have 1,190 followers. On Facebook, we have 7,300 followers on the city page, more than 1,300 on the library page, 1,800 on the fire department, and 4,200 on the Temple Terrace Police Department page. On YouTube, we have 408 subscribers. And currently on our cable channel, we are cycling through 23 different shows, which include the meetings, the welcome video, event highlights, other videos, and the new business spotlight that the business relations managers have started. So now we'll fast forward into the 2-year enhancement plan. The first thing I'd like to tackle is doing a website audit and a revamp. Like I said, the last time that we redid the website was in 2020. I want to take a look, develop a timeline, make sure that each department is checking their relevant content. I'm currently working with the police department to enhance their part of the website, which is going to look like an independent website but work within ours using some products that Civic Plus offers. If this proves to be good, we might expand it into other departments. I'd also like to implement a blog section that highlights the media coverage that we're getting, as well as positive news, kind of in the same line as the Week in Review. In the second year, after we've made some improvements, I want to analyze user behavior on the website again. Identify any other areas that we need to work on and use all of this information to work with Civic Plus for a redesign, which we will roll out in 2025 or in advance of 2025 with the Centennial. The other thing that we need to pay attention to is the government is just about to release new ADA guidelines, so we're going to have to beef up even more to make sure that we're, at least making a good faith attempt to adhere to those. The social media team, I'd like to enhance, assess the skills of all of the people that are working on social media in the fire department, in the police department, at the library, just to make sure that they have the training that they need. Assign some clear roles and responsibilities and make sure that the things are getting posted that need to get posted, and continue to sort of beef up the content that we're offering in terms of videos and images, and just to make it as interesting as possible. In the second year, I'd like to actually develop a social media content strategy that would include an editorial calendar, just so we can all be on the same page and kind of feed off each other. We have so many people following these pages, and we really need to take advantage of that and get the word out as often as possible. And production of a video magazine was one of the reasons why I wanted Brian to be with us. I'm hoping that we can roll that out as soon as next month, to start making a 5 to 10 minute recap of positive news, again, along the lines of the Week in Review, that can be hosted by the city manager, the mayor, any of you, if you would be interested. I do want to get away from plopping somebody in front of the camera and having them talk and have it be more conversational. We're trying to set up a little studio area here. We also now have access to the studio at Florida College, so that's another avenue that we could pursue. Obviously, we'll incorporate B-roll, graphics, and we'll release these on the cable channel as well as on social media and YouTube. I'm thinking that the first episode should certainly highlight the upcoming events, because we're about to get really busy in the city. In the second year, I would love to establish an internship with Florida College or with USF, so that some of the students there could contribute content and help us, because as we get bigger, we're still only 2.5 people, so it would be nice to have the help, and if possible, expand the length and the frequency. The fourth one is a rebranding, and I would love to replace the existing logo with an updated design and do some other things sort of to coincide with the Centennial. I think it's time. Obviously, I need your buy-in for this, because we're going to have to spend some money to do this when we rebrand. So, and the very first thing that I would want to do is to review the tenets of a good logo, because ours just is not workable in so many applications. Obviously, I would want to solicit your input, get input from staff and residents. I kind of foresee creating maybe 3 logo options that I could present to you that would apply the input that I've gotten within the confines, again, of the logo design principles. And then work out some sort of reasonable budget for rebranding that can happen in FY 24-25. And then in year 2, roll it out to coincide with the Centennial, incorporate it into the redesign of the website, and work out a plan to transition all of the different things to the new logo. So to stay on track, I'm going to continue to monitor the analytics to make sure that what we're doing is working, what we're doing makes sense. I will be giving quarterly reports to Carlos as well as to you to let you know how things are going, and continue to pursue any avenue I can find to gather input from you, from staff, and from the community on all of the efforts that we're doing. So those were the things that seem to me to be the logical and best things to move the city forward communication-wise, and I would welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Council members.
Up here.
Councilmember Fernandez.
2 things. One, we do have a calendar right now on our homepage. but it's not really got a lot of information on it. Is there a way that that calendar can become more interactive where, let's say, a city council meeting is listed and there's a link within that calendar listing that takes you to the agenda?
That actually is in place.
Well, when I clicked on it now I was just clicking on random days, days I knew that there was something, so there's not, everything is not posted on there.
Yeah, it's not done as far out as it could be. And, there are different people who have access to that back end of the website, and I can certainly work with them to make sure that we get more content on so that you can go a little bit further out than you can right now. Although obviously the council meetings in particular, to do a council meeting further out, you're not going to have an agenda.
Right, but but anyway, that would be one thing. But maybe even if it doesn't take you specifically to the council agenda packet, the link could just take you to the page where you could actually pull up the council agenda if it was too far out. But I mean, that would mean changing something later. But anyway, that was one of my requests. And then have we considered creating an app for the city so that someone can just add the app to their homepage? I mean, I know that's technically a link to a website, but it would just be there, and then they would click on the app and it would just, open up to all the information that we want available.
I mean, we do have the app for the city parks. That was kind of our dipping our toe in. Apps are kind of a lot of work. Just in loading front loading the content to begin with, and then keeping it up. It would definitely be something that we would also have to talk about at budget time, because it would need to be supported. But yeah, it's definitely something we could look into.
Councilmember Schisler?
Yeah, everything looks good. It's your recommendations seem very good. I would just caution you on the logo and the seal. I believe this issue came up about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was some passionate discussion that we need to make sure that council's comfortable with all the way around. But other than that, I agree with your program, what you want to try and do going forward. Thank you. Good presentation.
So, very good. Thank you. I'm really happy to see this so that there's we know where we're going. It's kind of what I was asking the country club earlier. It's like, okay, how do you know, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you got there or not, right? So thank you for putting this together, and I know it looks really easy to us, but I know that this was not easy to do. So the only 2 suggestions that I would make, and there may be good reasons for some of this, I don't know. The library has Facebook, the police and fire have Facebook, but it seems like we have an awful lot of stuff that goes on at Parks and Rec. And so if we're going to have staff training, for which we should, by the way, thank you for that too, is to make sure, because you don't just get on there like your personal account.
Exactly.
You need to know what you're doing, because this has got to be consistent across all the different. But my question for you, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, you don't have to answer me now, but it seems like Parks and Rec would be a good opportunity for another Facebook page, and if we're going to train staff, maybe we could find somebody. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn and Carl doesn't want it, but assuming that everybody wants this, it seems like we could train somebody from there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, all the meets they have, the swim meets and gymnastics, and I mean, it's really kind of a different thing. And if you're going to post all that stuff on the city's Facebook, it's going to become a Parks and Rec Facebook anyway. So,
yeah, no, I would be very happy with that, so long as we could identify the staff who would have the time to devote.
Okay, and the second thing, we don't have to have a lengthy discussion now because we're all tired, but the second thing is a city flag. I've been told for years that the city somewhere in the mysterious, misty, dark reaches of ancient history had a flag, but I cannot find this flag anywhere. I have searched, I have called people, and everybody knows about the elusive flag, but nobody can produce it. And so I can't even find anything back to 1925 where council ever officially adopted this flag. My hunch is, after pouring through the records at the clerk's office, my hunch is that somebody probably created the flag and everybody said, hey, that's really cool, and we're just going to make that the city flag. They probably made one, and that was it, because if council would have approved this, it'd be in the record, and it's not. So unless somebody listening can actually produce this flag and not give me a list of phone numbers to call Aunt Edna, and so I've done all that. I don't want to do any more of that. Unless you can walk in here with a flag, I say that we just get to work having a public contest or something to create a city flag so that we have this for our centennial celebration.
What I would like to do, and I mean, I think this would be appropriate for a flag, is the city really doesn't have a seal. I mean, it had a round seal that used to be on the building, but we also use that as our logo. And to be honest, that was an even worse logo than the one we have because it was very, very busy. Our official seal that we put on documents literally says seal on it. I mean, I would love, Sarasota did a contest, a citizen contest, inviting them to submit seal designs, and they had that as part of their centennial. I would love to do that and have a seal that then could go on a flag as well.
I don't think it's fair to ask council because, I mean, we're all exhausted and we didn't tell the public we were going to talk about this. So the action item will come back later for us to say, yeah, this is what, but anyway, just conceptually, are you guys okay with the idea of this? You're going to get the vote one way or the other later on, but okay.
I think that maybe even tie in the Centennial Committee into that too.
Yeah. Any other questions, council members?
James doesn't have the flag?
He might. He's not going to own up to it now.
The only reference I've ever heard was Jack Ritter talking about a flag.
It existed.
Somewhere in some newspaper, but I don't know.
I can't find it. Thank you very much. City manager, you're still in your report.
I have one final item to report on. This is not just for the council, obviously, it's for the public. So this is going to sound familiar to a lot of folks if you have done business with any sort of financial entity at any time in your past. You probably received a letter similar to this. The city's fire department has a relationship, contractual relationship with a billing services provider, and that billing services provider uses a software tool called Move It that is used by many companies around the country, and that tool had a vulnerability that unfortunately was exploited by some actor, and that exposed certain data. And so we were, the company that provides the tool, it's called a company Progressive Software. They announced that there was this problem back at the end of May, and our building services provider called EMSMC started to look into this and try to figure out which of their clients, they have many clients, which of their clients' data may have been involved. We were made aware that our data, we were notified officially that our data in mid-July was some of the data that may have been exposed. So as a result, they have committed to issuing letters to the residents or the individuals, I should say, they don't necessarily have to be residents. These are people that have been transported or treated by fire department. The company was going to send letters. They're also going to issue a press release to do that as part of their obligation moving forward. So the letter that was sent dated August 9th that went out to the users of our medical services unfortunately had an error, because what's happened here is that, as I mentioned, this company has multiple clients, and depending on what client data happened to be in the ether at any given moment when this breach happened, it could mean that some clients' data are more exposed than others, for example. So in our case, what was made vulnerable was the patient name, date of service, medical treatment location, which would be the destination hospital that we transported to, as well as the medical record number. Unfortunately, what went out in the letters of August 9th was name and social security number, date of birth, and that information was not what was involved in our particular case. So we have advised the billing provider that they made an error, They've acknowledged their error, and they have apologized for that, and they will be issuing new letters out to the community that will illustrate this correction. They are also providing identity protection services through Experian. They've contracted with Experian, so in fact, in the letter, there'll be a number that they provide, a phone number that's to Experian, but that is a specific contact line for this particular issue. So if you call Experian using that number, and there should be some sort of a record number too that's identifiable, it'll take you directly to this case. And so they have a script there that they have questions and answers for, and they'll help address the person in the right way. And if the person has additional concerns in calling Experian, the people at Experian know they can escalate that call up to the chief compliance officer of the billing provider. And that information has been made public. So I just want to put this out there. This is never a good thing for the community. But again, it unfortunately is a fact of life for a lot of organizations, and it's not our data, and it's not even our billing provider's data, but it was, again, something that happened far down the stream, but it impacts them, and by extrapolation impacts us as well.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Council members?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
That's all you have. City Attorney?
I have nothing.
You sure? You don't have that 40-minute report we talked about? Directors, any other business to come before the council? You just want to go home. I don't blame you. All right, council members, we will stand adjourned. Good meeting. Thank you. We made history.